Yes, here we go. It's the T.N.F. No Judge tonight. He's not well. Marc, top lad. He's been brilliant on the bus, and it's the 100th episode of the T.N.F. So it's a real shame that the face of the T.N.F, Mr. Judge Cairney, is sadly going to be missing tonight. We're not feeling great. Got a cold. Nothing life-threatening or anything like that. I'm reassured he will be back in the bus soon. But Johnny Logue, when was the last time me and you chewed the fat about Celtic a while ago? So thank you so much for standing in.
No problem, mate. I can't remember. I was trying to think actually when the last time I was on when you were on, but it must be a good 5-6 weeks ago at least, if not more. So
yeah more than 6 weeks. It feels like that, Johnny. And yeah, absolutely loads to catch up on as well. And not just about catching up. We've got to look ahead. And looking ahead means the big one this Saturday. The league is the most important thing, but I think the cup final just takes on more significance because we won the league. I think if we lose the league, I generally think that it's a damp squib, the cup final. It's a fake loving for it all if we won it, and I don't see the same enthusiasm. But now I'm like, fuck, you've got to do this. You've got to rubber stamp it, your authority. You've got to usher in this next era of dominance with a double in Brendan's first season back, which I am confident we'll get. The narrative seems to be very, very much that Celtic are the red hot favourites. Rangers fans, social media even seems to be a bit more civilised, shall we say, and a bit more realistic about their hopes and aspirations for what their team can produce this weekend. And, obviously anything can happen. We're going to discuss all of that. Anyway, before we do that, all that good stuff means give us a wee like. Please do give us a share. We're at the unusual time of about 23 minutes past 6 tonight, which I think is a new one for the bus, even on episode 100. So if you want to give us a wee like, give us a share. That would be massive because it will get the bus busy, and we want as many points, of course, on the T.N.F because it's the night we hand over the keys to use. On top of that, if you want to go to piesports.com, get some tasty pastry treats in. Maybe for the weekend, maybe for next week, maybe just because you love pies. Nothing wrong with that. They've got a huge variety of them at piesports.com, and it's 12.5% off when you use bus 1888 at the checkout. There's a wee sort of the codes in there in the episode bio. Anyway, Johnny, yes, all minds, all eyes now firmly on the second prize, and we want to win the second prize big time. You know all about Celtic winning doubles, famous doubles. You came on Bustalgia, spoke about the centenary double. This one might not have quite that significance, but I think going forward, if this really is going to be, as I say, sign sealing, delivering, rubber stamping your authority and your dominance, and that this wasn't just Rangers got beat off Dundee and Ross County and blew the league pish. Instead, if we turn it into, or drew with them, whatever it was, nobody cares, mate. But if it turns into Celtic won a double in Rodgers' first season back, Rangers thought they were actually going to have the edge at one point in that season, and then actually Celtic ran out with the double. I think it's massive. You don't want them winning 2 of the 3 trophies either. There's that dynamic. That gives them a lot of hope, a lot of belief. I think you want to put the foot down now. And I don't mean it in a violent way, but you know what I mean when you say foot on their throat sort of thing. I don't mean it literally. But that is what you've kind of got to do now. I'm really, really thinking that this cup final has a hell of a lot more significance than maybe many others. And of course, because it's against them, that also means it's the first time in this incarnation of Rangers and the first time against any version of Rangers in 22 years. I'm not going to go down that road of what version of Rangers is right or wrong. I don't particularly care. But Johnny, your thoughts? It is a big, big game this weekend.
Oh, it's massive, and you're right. I would love the opinion that so long as we won the league, that's all that mattered. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggie. That's the one that you want every season. They said to you at the start of the year, you can win the league every year, but somebody else, not necessarily them, are going to win the cup. I would say, yeah, fine, have the cups. But when it comes to cup final day, I was actually finally managed to catch up with Terry and talking about the devil. I managed to catch up with the PMP from Saturday with Terry and Connor, and I was in agreement with Terry. Give me the league, and anybody else can have the cup. And while we're on that subject, don't think I'd ever make a deal with Terry, because Terry made a deal with himself last week that if we win the league, Rangers can have the cup. And as soon as he got his deal, he reneged on it straight away and wants the cup as well. And so do I. I was going to renege as well. I have the same opinion. Now we've got to win the cup. Because we don't want to give them, like you've just said, any chink of light, any hint of a breath of fresh air, any kind of bragging right over the summer. We won 2 trophies. You might won 2, but we won the biggie. But we won 2. So I don't care. They would swap places with us tomorrow, and we need to hammer home and put the foot down the throat in any way that's required to win this cup on Saturday. And I'm a bit frightened, if I'm being honest, about how confident we're all feeling. Pride coming before a fall and all that sort of stuff. But I am confident we can win. I'm not going to see it, but I am confident we'll win. And it becomes, as Terry said on Saturday night, it's the most important game of the season now, because it's the next one and it's the last one, and it's going to be a long summer without football. And we're not going to have the European Championships, but without proper football, without Celtic, it's going to be a long summer. So we want to sign off on a high, and hopefully the sun will be shining for all them boys and girls that are going to be there, and hopefully celebrating it.
Oh, you're spot on, mate. And I think as well, I want to talk about the confidence aspect, because I think it's pretty universally agreed, that the Celtic are red-hot favourites. There's a calm amongst our support, I think, reading between the lines, that we will go and get the job done. And you look at, as I say, from their perspective, and there seems to be almost an acceptance as well, which isn't always their greatest trait to have, accepting reality. And yet it does feel like there's an acceptance amongst their support that, yep, massive underdogs, Celtic overwhelming favourites, let's just hope we can get the job done, sort of thing. It's hope above belief. We all feel extremely confident. How have we got here? 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, there was nails getting bitten off left, right and centre. There was real worry amongst the fans that the league was going to get taken out of hands. Rangers are strengthened, we'd regressed. It's all moved so quick that you couldn't have told me 5-6 weeks ago we'd be in a position going into the cup final. See, to be honest with you, against anyone, not just Rangers. If we said Rangers, I really would have raised my eyebrows, at the least. That going into this game, we'd be so zen, so relaxed, so not arrogantly confident, but so super confident in a team of players we believe have Rangers' number. As I say, 5-6 weeks ago, I didn't feel like that with Celtic. I didn't feel this level of confidence about Celtic stringing two consecutive solid performances together. We were getting a game of 2 halves each week, and even mixed that up a bit. It was a good second half some weeks, good first half the next. It was really hard to keep up. And your best run of form in terms of performances, not just results, has been crucially since the split. Probably since the draw at Ibrox, where we were raging, we didn't get the win, and they were celebrating getting a draw. I think since then we have went through the gears a bit.
I think sorry to butt in on you there.
Oh, please do, it's good.
I actually think it's before the moral victory for Rangers at Ibrox. I think it was getting beat at Tynecastle. That's fair. And it seems a bit. I think it's combined with getting Cameron Carter-Vickers back playing regularly, consistently, and Hatate. It's got to be said it coincides with that. But I think the injustice that we as supporters, the players as players, and Brendan as the manager felt that some of the decisions in that game and some of the actions taken after it, which were then proved to be actually what Brendan said was right. It was just down to incompetence. They got decisions wrong in that game, vital decisions which helped swing that game away from us.
Totally, mate.
And I think maybe that sense of injustice that the players must have felt how that game went, I think that spurred them on, along with probably the Rangers press or the Scottish press, whichever one you want to call them, had now decided that Rangers were now in the driving seat and it was theirs to lose. And thankfully, that's exactly what they did do. But it wasn't they went and lost it. We took it back again after we we're starting to let it slip from our grasp. The player just thought, that's not happening. We're taking this back. It's our trophy and we're keeping it. And I think that was a big turning point in the season, actually getting beat rather than winning the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a good signpost, definitely. There's been a few, and you're right to highlight, for example, the Cameron Carter-Vickers one as well. I think there has been a few signposts along the way that you could start saying things started to go to turn in our favour and Celtic look more like Celtic. Also, I think one of the reasons for the Cup final, there being a confidence is not just against Rangers, when it's came to the games that have mattered. Now, all games matter when you're at Celtic, I get that. But the games of the higher magnitude, shall we say, the higher focus, Rodgers has done pretty well this year, I think. I thought he was damn unlucky at times of the Champions League. I thought he managed those games, which are, I think, the biggest of the big for Celtic, and I'll always say that. I know winning, the European Cup again is, nearly impossible. But when you're dining at the top table, I want Celtic to compete at the top table. I thought we competed in this group this year. And we were unlucky. So those big games, I think he came out with it with pass marks. Double the points of the year before. It's progress, albeit it was the dead rubbery one. But I think there's something to build on from what Rodgers did. Now I'm looking at domestically. The big games would be your 4 against your title rivals, Johnny. That would be your 4 games that are real magnitude in the league, and he gets 3 wins and a draw. He's navigated us to the Cup final, albeit the League Cup opening round game at Killie was a moment in time, and maybe a wake-up call, a reality check that this isn't going to be the invincible season all over again, and it's not going to be just all unicorns and rainbows all season. There's going to be ups and downs, and I think it's been a good lesson this season for a lot of generations of Celtic fans, like Pam, maybe in the chat. But yeah, I look at the final and I go, we've got a reason to be confident based on evidence this year with the manager and this team. The bigger games that Rodgers has competed in, certainly domestically, he has prevailed. That does stack up, and the bigger games that naturally means the rivals have been in, they've not, because they've not beaten us this year. They've picked up 1 point in the league, and I think when you base it on that, we have a right to be confident with those sort of stats alone, Johnny.
Oh, absolutely. If you've beaten your closest rivals and you've taken the lion's share of the points, and you've only dropped 1 point to them, we've taken 10. You've just got to be confident. I'd be worried if they didn't feel confident, but so long as they realise, yeah, we're confident, but we've still got a job to do. Man for man, we're better than they are. There's not a player in that Rangers team or squad that you would be remotely interested in. Potentially Butland, but Butland's lost. How many goals has he lost against us this season already?
Oh, that'd be one. There was 1-0.
7 goals to us this year.
Yeah, good maths. Good maths, quicker than
so,
me.
At least I think it's, if I've got the score lines right, yeah, he's lost 7 goals to us. But to be fair to him, he's also made some good saves as well. But would we have him instead of whoever our potential replacement might be for the outgoing Joe Hart? But he's the only one I think that would get any consideration to be in our squad, never mind team. So we've got every right to be confident because of the way the results have gone when they mattered and when we were severely under strength in at least 2 of those games.
I'm glad you flagged that, because that's going to be one of the excuses for them as well, that it's a patchwork defence that they've got to play. Well, we've done that as well. You look how many games. Was it Welsh and Lagerbielka, if I'm not mistaken, at Ibrox in the first game?
I think
Scales and Lagerbielka, sorry. Scales and Lagerbielka, I beg your pardon.
And then Welsh and Scales in one of the other games when Welsh went off, dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. That's the second one.
Came on. So yeah, we were severely under strength, and in that first game we were up against 11 men in blue, 3 men in black, and 52,000 fans in blue and white. So we overcame those odds and we dealt with them. And yeah, we got the result. We did get a decision that was rather contentious, shall we say. And then we won it with a wonderful goal from our main talisman, who does like a goal against these guys. So,
well, let's look at that. I mean, they've got to be terrorised right now. You know, there's stories that it could be King and who's the other centre back that could play for them?
Davis.
Davis. Ben Davis had shockers against us before. He's not played many minutes this season. King's a youngster, or it's Balogun who's been sent off against us this season. I mean, they're going to be having nightmares, and they don't even know who they're playing against, because what he has done since he's came in has dictated outcomes. He's influenced outcomes for Celtic when it's mattered. And I actually think his past couple of performances have really shown him in a different level to what I think we'd seen so far. I think we'd seen a lot of heart from him. We'd seen some good side-stays play, but important goals. I think he's measured that now with really good performances, as have the team of late. But I think his individual performance levels have risen. Kyogo, we know what he does against this team. We know he puts the fear of God in them. Against the patchwork defence, let's not use that excuse, because it's a squad game, and we've navigated it with that. I just think, though, deep down they'll know that their patchwork efforts don't quite equate to ours, and the guy in the dugout for us is above whoever it is they manage to get in charge at any given time. And that will mean we find it easier to get through these tricky circumstances than they will. And I think it's interesting. Liam the Punk Ducks came in, started this comment, and he's saying how many of their players are just looking forward to the Rangers season getting left behind. I think a lot of them might be in that category. There might be a bit of dread going into this final. I talk about Lundstrom's reaction to his OG. I literally tweeted at the time, Johnny, he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else but here right now. And lo and behold, he was sent off 10 minutes later. Couldn't believe it. I wonder if there is a bit of dread with that. And because they've got players missing, they know the writing's on the wall. Liam is thinking, get a goal early and it could collapse. It could be spectacular. I also am of the side of, I think they're due one. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and not only the getting the season behind them, because some of them will be leaving the Rangers' career behind them and are probably quite happy to get out of there and go into pastures new where they don't have the same sort of pressure that's put upon them. And Liam might just get one of his 5-0 or 5-1 predictions this weekend. You never know if that happens. I forgot what else he said there, actually, Russell, because I was laughing at Liam's comment. But yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking about the dread that they might have going into the game and the fact that they might be due a humping. You know, they might be just due a doing. Do you know what I mean? And, that is when the confidence turns out a wee bit of an arrogant one. I can't deny that. But that's just what happens when you're a fan. I
think we are due to give them humping because, I mean, like I said, we've had tight score lines in all the games this season. When they really, as one of my old mates back up in Glenrothes used to always say to me about any football match that was one side, if it had been a boxing match, it had been stopped. And I think certainly the moral victory would have been stopped at half time if it was a boxing match. And they just said, you're not coming back out. The white towel's going in.
Yeah, I like that.
You can't be taking any more of this kind of punishment. And maybe the first game of the season wasn't quite like that, but we never really looked in any serious danger in any of the games, to be fair. So yeah, I think we could be in line to give them more of a doing than we have done so far this season. Because that's one thing that Rangers supporters and Mr. Souness on TalkSport the other week there was making big things about, like it was some achievement. Oh, you only beat us by one goal in each game, and we actually got a draw against you. So the gap's not what you think it is. We took 10 out of 12 points off you. You know what else do you expect? It's a big gap.
That's a doing. That is a doing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, I take what you're saying there. I mean, say at the end of the day, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Either way, you know, if you're getting beat, you're getting beat. And I think this time around we are due that sort of substantial win. It'd be a fantastic place. I associate the Scottish Cup with Celtic. I'm sure you do for even more spectacular reasons, like the centenary year.
Yeah.
My first year on planet Earth was the centenary year. I was, the 100th birthday of Celtic marked my first day on this earth. I'm exactly 100 years younger than Celtic, so it's
rub it in, Bhoycie.
I love that. Some people like talk about like having the same birthday. I don't know, it's fucking Marty Pello or something. It's like nobody cares, mate. I've got Celtic as the same birthday as me. You know what I mean? When it comes down to the game itself, I think player-wise, we feel we've got the upper hand. I think manager-wise, we know we've got the upper hand. And for once, we have the fans in unison that are feeling. There'll be some on edge, of course there will. But I think across the board, the vast majority feel a level of confidence that I don't think we allow ourselves often enough. I'm quite a confident person. I kind of look at things just as I see it, and if that means I'm going to be confident based on evidence, then I will be. Some people could look at evidence and go, "Oh, but you still never know," and I get that. That's just the way they react to magnitude, situations of such magnitude. But for Celtic fans, it's an uncomfortable one almost at times as well. Feeling this confidence, I think the general confidence amongst the support will make the edgier ones even edgier, Johnny, because they're not used to feeling like this. Even though the records show the dominance, this season shows the dominance. The 10 out of 12 points you speak of, the 7 goals scored. However, there will be some that being in said zen space of mind and confident about this game that'll make them feel uncomfortable almost as well. I've always felt, being a Celtic fan, that at times there's not inferiority complex isn't what I mean, like we are inferior to them, but I always think Celtic fans prefer to be almost the punching underdogs, punching above the weight underdogs, rather than being the gallus sort of dominant leaders. And maybe we've seen a transition of that with the younger generations because of the amount of trophies won over the last 20 years. The absolute, it's crazy how much Celtic have won domestically over the last 20 years. And maybe some fans now will be in that space where they now feel the gallus, confident, dominating side. And I think I've not always been used to that, but I do get why there's been bedwetting going on when it's been unnecessary. And by the way, myself included, I think you end up following suit. You mirror people's reactions, or it can certainly rub off on you. And this time around, it's all positive energy, mate, because we all think the Celtic's going to win. And I quite like to be in this space.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm quite enjoying being in this space as well. I mean, there's been times in the past as well when I've been supremely confident right up to kickoff. And then as soon as the game kicks off, I spend the 90 minutes shaking like a shitting dog and just terrified that something's going to go badly wrong. And that doesn't matter how confident I'm not going to be able to see the game on Saturday. I'm going to be working. But if I was sitting at home watching it, I would be supremely confident. But there'll still be that little niggle in the back of the head saying, this could go tits up, mate. This could go badly wrong. And I'm hoping that by the time I get to... Because when I'm at work, I have no access to hearing what's happening unless we happen to have a passenger on the plane who's paid for the internet and is keeping me up to date with scores, which has only happened once. But I'm looking forward to getting to Houston. And my biggest dilemma when I get to Houston is, do I wear the Celtic top when I go out to the Irish bar, or do I put the Bhoycie top on? It's going to be one of the...
Oh, that's a dilemma, Johnny. I love that, mate.
So maybe the guys that are watching, the guys and the girls that are watching it, could maybe put a little vote thing on and tell me Celtic top or Bhoycie top for the Irish bar in Houston, just outside the hotel. So.
Mate, these are first world problems, mate. These are proper nice headaches to have. I love it.
Shocking, isn't it? I don't know how we survived. Don't know how we cope. But yeah, I am supremely confident, and I'm expecting to hear that when we land in Houston that we're celebrating back home, having a party, and I'm just looking forward to it. And then catch up with it all on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I hear you, mate. I hear you. Big Dom's absolutely spot on. Bhoycie, one of Brendan's harshest critics, like me a few months ago. Was I one of his harshest? I was probably getting accused of the other. I was probably getting accused of trying to, dampen down the criticism at times, albeit, Big Dom, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the sense of, I wet the bed a few times. I started to question. I thought there was no way he's going to be here next year either way. I was maybe looking a bit too much into body language, a bit too much into, how people conduct themselves on touchlines and how animated they are and things like this, and maybe reading a bit too much into it because I'm basing it also on negative performances or at times negative results. I try to intertwine it all and coming up with crazy conclusions, which I think just tells you how out of sorts we've been as a fan base of being able to deal with legitimate title championships going to the second last day. We ain't used to it. We are not used to doing it. It's been so long. And I think this is almost a wee lesson learned for us all, that you've got to get over the line in titles. And, history is always kind, I think, to Celtic eras. I mean, you look at O'Neill's and it was 3 title wins out of 5. You would describe it as the best. I would describe it as the best Celtic side I've seen in my time. And it's all fond memories looking back. It's about getting over the line sometimes, and doing the business. And I think with 93 points this year, we've done okay. But in between that, there were times when maybe we did overreact in a negative way. But we've came a hell of a long way since then, Johnny, because we're going into this game
and I think
a different mindset.
I think, in fairness, and just to say back to Big Dom, and it's good to see you on the bus, Big Dom. But I think everybody on the Bhoycie Bus, all of us that come on and in a group chat, I think we were all universally absolutely delighted when Rodgers came back. And that obviously not something that can be said throughout the Celtic fan base.
Spot on, Johnny.
I think everybody on the bus was delighted. I mean, I remember being on with Steve when he done his shows, and when he asked me what I said, Brendan Rodgers. Normally I'm not a fan of people coming back in second times around, but he was my one and only choice, particularly when we've seen the potential options that were on the betting list. He was the only one for us. And I think we all did have not a wobble, but we did start to think, maybe we've got this wrong. Maybe we have got it wrong. But then we also spoke about what he's been given to work with. It's a bit like the riot police going into a riot situation with a water pistol rather than a shield and a baton. And I think that's what they've done to Brendan for a lot of that season. And it's been said 1,000 times, and Terry spoke about it, how the summer signings from last year, not one of them started against Rangers at Celtic Park the other week there. And he wasn't tooled up, and we all said that, and we did say that maybe we do have to make a change and make the change before we get too far down the line. But for whatever reason, people held their nerve, Brendan and the players, and we got through it. Once we started getting our main men back, and that's always going to be the issue.
I mean,
I've said to you before, Terry, Russell, when we spoke about the one player that frightens me when he's not playing for us, when he's not in the team, is if I don't see the name Cameron Carter-Vickers on that team list, that gives me more of a fear than McGregor not being on it, or even O'Reilly not being on it. It's Cameron Carter-Vickers. He just makes other defenders look and play better.
Johnny, it's got to be a fit Cameron Carter-Vickers as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's what I think is the misleading bit, because when you actually look at how many starts he's had this season, you're probably pleasantly surprised at how many games he's featured in. But I don't think we've seen the real Cameron Carter-Vickers till towards the end of the season. Now, Brown Warrior comes in, it's an airbrushing that's going on now. The title's in the bag. 93 points, though, Brown, is an airbrushing. You can't airbrush facts. 93 points over the last 20 years is, I think, joint 4th or 5th highest points tally, one. I do think there's been more negativity about this season than many that have been won with less points than 93. So it's not just completely airbrushing things. It's trying to be in the business of, as we go along, we call it as we see it, which I've read, Brown Warrior, and I appreciate that. You also said we called it as we seen it as we went on. But I don't get the airbrushing thing, because that ain't what's happening. what we're actually doing is now reflecting and looking at the undeniable fact, whilst knowing throughout the season there were moments justifiably where we lost our cool, and maybe we're more experienced now of what it's like to be in a title race again. Some moments where you go, sticky spells can happen. Loads of backdrops as well went on, but we could talk about that all day.
And then also in response to that, Russell, I mean, I might not have said it on air, depending on when I was on or not, but I've put it in our group chat often. So many of our performances were absolutely turgid. And if it hadn't been Celtic playing, I'd have switched off and gone and watched the grass grow rather than Celtic play. So I don't think we're airbrushing anything. We're all well aware that although we won the title, it wasn't good enough for us as fans to be entertained. Because I want to be entertained as well when I watch Celtic. Some of the best games I was at and I've watched on television, Celtic actually lost, but you watched it and you thought, that was some game of football, that, by the way. But we never got too much of that this season. And Brown Warrior is right on that front. There wasn't a lot of fantastic performances. We got through
exactly. Totally agree with that.
And we said that, and not just myself, but yourself and Marc. My God, Marc, he was so critical at times. He wanted Rodgers out in January, didn't he? He said, get him out and see him again.
Yeah, so he was genuine as well. I mean, it's genuine. Yeah, these things have all happened, you know what I mean? And I think reflecting sometimes is looking at bigger pictures and going, do you know what? It's okay to have been losing your cool throughout. But in the cold light of day, when you look at the facts, it's also time then to go, sometimes we overreacted, sometimes we didn't, but we're all better fans for it. You've got a better prism, you've got a better balance now than what we've maybe had over the last 10, 15 years. And in some generation's case, Johnny, ever. I think it's been a healthy season all in for a lot of us, just to remember that winning titles, never taken for granted. Don't think they just get handed out. Don't think that it should be something that, you know, we just turn up and win. It's never been that before. And despite this unparalleled success we've recently had, there's another 105 years before the last 20 that literally tell you decade after decade after decade, titles are won by a hell of a lot more than just turning up and expecting to. It's literally there in black and white for you. So why this generation would be complete, or this era, I should say, would be completely different, baffles me. And yes, though we have every right to challenge performances, every right to question them. Are we going to be as quick next year to jump on the Brendan out bandwagon? I highly doubt it. I think we'll have more rounded opinions, and that'll be one of the benefits of having a season like the one we've had. Sorry, John.
One example of it, though, Bhoycie, was the when we lost the moral victory game. I wasn't on the show or anything like that, but I put in our group chat that normally you would say at the start of the season, we'll give you a point every time you go to Ibrox. Yeah, we'll take that. And I put in our group chat that although we'd got a draw in that game, I was absolutely raging at that. I was.
Yeah.
It was,
definitely.
It felt like we'd got beat, and I was really not happy about it. And I think it took me until the following night when I sat down and thought about, and you've seen the reactions from elsewhere, and you've read things. You thought, actually, we're actually still in control of this. Everybody was going about how it's now in Rangers' hands, and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, it's still in our hands as well. And I fancy us more than I fancy them to go in and do the job. But at the time of the result, I was raging and spitting blood, So I don't think we're airbrushing anything, and now everything's rosy in the garden. Hopefully things will get a bit rosier over the summer, but I think we've got to say it as is. Yeah, we didn't play well, and Brown Roy, wasn't it? He's right, when we didn't have a lot of great performances.
Yeah, and I think that's true.
We're not airbrushing over any of these bad performances because of that.
Yeah, and I think it just honestly sometimes just needs seasons like this just to give you that wee reality bump as to what it takes to win 38 games. And sometimes the disrespect levels handed out to your opposition. Yes, on paper they're guys on a grand a week. They should be, the paper boys, all this crap. See, at the end of the day, they're playing like their lives depend on it against every time they play Celtic. You're not playing the real version of them. You're playing a pumped up, over it, a side that's going to play beyond its level every time we play them. It's a different dynamic. It's a different opposition to what it is on paper when you come against it. That's 38 games a season. And that means when you've got a title challenge and a Rangers side that are going to finish with over 80 points, you have got to be at it to get ahead of that week in, week out. And the weeks you haven't, you need to claw that back somehow. And we did it by spanking our rivals 3 out of 4 games. That's what's happened. But it leaves us, as I say, back to in terms of cup final. I think, in my opinion, it leads us to this sort of more balanced, and maybe why there's this universal calmness and confidence now. Maybe we've all learned a few lessons this year, and we're actually allowing ourselves to go into a cup final against our rivals and feel confident, and justifiably so. Good. So you touched on it, Johnny. And I think you were trying to make a wee segue. I think you're wanting a hosting job off me, mate, which I'm more than happy to give you. I heard the wee segue about returning, and you were saying about Rodgers. You're always for players returning. There's a couple of names that have came up, and I think Celtic have to be the one club that gets linked to former players more than any other. I think there's an obsession with it amongst some sections of our fans as well. Do you know that? I really do. I think we always seem to be our first protocol is what's one of our ex-players up to, you know, and I get it in some instances, but because it regularly rears its head every year, every window, there's an ex-player linked to the return, it kind of becomes mind-numbing. But what it also does though then is give unbalanced opinion, because some fans that will be like me rolling their eyes at another ex-player named won't actually be stripping it back and just looking at it as, would that player improve the team? They're looking at the person, not the player, the name, not the contribution they would make in a Celtic shirt or still are capable of doing. And well done, Stephen Kennedy, because me and Johnny spoke about this before we came on. They are the two names, Stephen, that are going to be brought up now. So well done, mate. You must have been on the bus, mate, before we took off.
I think he's
back, mate.
Emails.
Yeah, he's definitely been. Fraser Forster's name came up in the paper the other day because he's been released by Spurs, so he's a free agent. Naturally, that leads to him being linked. He'll be joining us at the same age, 35, that Joe Hart was when he joined. The difference is Fraser Forster's had 2, you could call it 3 spells at Celtic. And that puts people off. But for me, the debate should always be, and regardless of whether you want him back or you don't, but as long as the debate is based on will he have a contribution in the Celtic jersey over the next 2 to 3 years as a number one, and it'd be a positive one. If you think it would be, no, I don't think he's a good enough goalkeeper anymore, I'm happy to have that debate. I think that's fair. But see if it's because he's played for us 2 or 3 times before, I can't factor that into my decision-making process on what is and what isn't a good signing for Celtic. I don't see why you should let these aspects of a debate come into it. It should be more focused on his age, his wages, his ability at this moment in time, his match sharpness, his hunger to do it. It shouldn't be bold signing the same player over and over again. I think the Forster links will continue. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It could be just lazy journalism. But of course, Johnny, what we're allowed to do as Celtic fans is talk about these things and speculate. So I put the question to you. Fraser Forster's agent phones. He's looking for a 2-year deal. He wants to be Celtic's number one for the next 2 years, take him up from 35, 36 to 37, 38. What do you say?
You're right when you say you don't base it on how many times he's already been with us. You base it on how's he been playing, how's his performance, how's his fitness, and how much does he want, I suppose. And I've got no idea what he's been doing for the last, how long has he been at Spurs? 3 years? Did he go to Spurs?
That'll be 2 or 3 years now, yeah.
I think he went to Spurs as Hart came out, didn't he? I think they sort of passed each other in the door. I might be wrong.
That's right, yeah. 3 years it'll be.
So that's 3 years, and he's probably played I don't know, half a dozen games of that. It might be more. I don't know. I really do not know how much he's played.
He definitely played more than that earlier on. He definitely had more games. I'm sure there was an injury to Lloris for quite a substantial period,
okay.
and he was number one at that. Well, not number one. He was deputised number one
but even if
for
that
a single period.
If that was early on in his Spurs career, then that's say 2.5 years ago, at least 2 years. So I don't know. And how old is he? Is he younger than Hart? Did you see he's the same age?
No, I think he's when Joe Hart joined us, he was 35. Forster's either 35 now, or he's going to be 36 this year, or he's just turned 36 recently. That's where we're at with Joe. So very, very similar to the age Joe Hart was when he joined. And I don't remember Joe Hart's age coming into it. And I don't remember the fact Joe Hart hadn't played for 3 years coming into it. He seemed to get kind of universally acclaimed when he was joining, as far as I remember. So there's interesting comparisons to be made there, and that's what I'm trying to. I don't mean educate in a patronising way, but I'm trying to make you look at this. Not you, everyone, when they talk about it, forget that he's played for us a few times. Get it out of your head.
The thing is with the age thing is it's definitely a different level or talking point for a goalkeeper to an outfield player. Goalkeepers can play until they're 40 quite easily. They might not be the same goalkeeper at 40 as they were at 20, 25 and 30, but they can still play, where you get very, very few outfield players that will be playing into their 40s. The likes of Ryan Giggs would maybe be one of the exceptions, quite where he got his stamina from, I'm not too sure. But he was, so the age thing doesn't really bother me about a goalkeeper, unless, of course, they're already 40. I could reel off about 5 or 6 goalkeepers off the top of my head that played in their 40s. Peter Shilton.
I'm sure, funnily enough, a great example of that, Johnny, sorry to cut in, a great example of that would be like Spurs, funnily enough, we were talking about. They signed, I think, Brad Friedel from Villa when he was 37, I think it was, 38. To be their number one for the next 3 years or 2 years, and he was shit hot for them.
Yeah.
Up until that age, I worry that it's the person that that'll get doubted as opposed to ability. And if people want to question the ability, I think that's totally fair debate. That's fine, and I'm more than happy to go down that road. There's some comments in the chat saying about Forster's ability with his feet, and I think that's a fair observation.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's fair to say it never really affected him in Champions League nights and things like that. Celtic. There's another comment that came in, and I think it was AJSC Tech, if I'm not right, and great to have you on the bus. But this is what I can't get on board with. Forster caused and triggered our COVID season by not signing for Lennon. I can't bring that into my decision making. What's best for Celtic going forward? I don't look to examples of that would justify. I think that's when you're getting into the emotional, the personal side of things, and I think it's about removing all that. When you come to make a decision, it's whether you think Fraser Forster, for example, on a free transfer provides proper value and proper value in terms of value for money, I suppose, but more importantly, does he bring value to this first team? Is he going to really be a substantial and a player that makes a massive impact playing for Celtic over the next couple of years as the number one goalkeeper? If you could tick those boxes, I'll be honest, I don't really care about theories of whether it was him who caused our COVID season, and I don't care whether it's his fourth spell. You know what I mean? I'm not interested. If the decision is no, he's not going to make the desired impact as our number one goalkeeper for the next couple of years at Celtic, that's fine too. But let's make it about the football. That's all I'm caring about.
I'd be surprised if we did go back for Forster, if I'm being honest. I think there's other potential ones that have been mentioned who I'm going to be perfectly honest about. I don't know any more about how they've done over the last 2 years than Forster has, if I'm being honest. The big Belgian lad, he gets good write-ups, but until he came up on the gossip columns, I'd never heard of the guy. That's because I don't pay that much attention to
Clone Castiles, big Stephen Kennedy. He's at it today. Yeah. He's got the script. He's got the script for the show, Stephen Kennedy. I'm telling you now.
He's apparently this guy's built like a brick shithouse, and his got a good reputation goalkeeper, good experienced goalkeeper. 31 or 32, I think I read he was. So, but
yeah,
apart
31.
apart from that, I don't know any more about him than how he's actually performed. Apart from the fact he's been playing top flight football for the last however many years in comparison to Forster. So I think Forster might, if we were getting the same, if he was coming back and he was the wall as we described by the Spanish press, then yeah, you'd say, yeah, get him back in. Don't know whether he still is or not. Whether there's a few chinks in that wall or not, I don't know. But
is there a lesson to be learned from the Joe Hart one? If we use that as a very valid comparison, then you go when these guys realise time is up in their career, or father time is about to bring an end to their career. You get one last chance to play the fucking juggernaut of a club that is Celtic, the sleeping giant in European terms, but 60,000 fans week in, week out, they're certainly not sleeping. Trophies to be won. I think they start appreciating it more. I think they get more motivated, more up for it, into better shape. Fitness-wise, I think they get better. They start playing against the clock, not just against the opposition. I think you can get a different animal then. I think Joe Hart's finest season in Celtic shirt's been his third. No two ways about it for me.
I think Joe Hart's finest spell at Celtic has been the last 6 months since he retired, since he announced he was going. This is my last 6 months. This is going to be it. This has to be top performance because it's my last chance. I'm not going through this again. I'm going to retire at the end of the season, and I think his best spell. And I've always appreciated for Hart. Don't get me wrong. He's not made the wow, great. How the hell did he manage that sort of saves for us? But he's made important saves. And the one I keep thinking about, and wasn't a great save, it was a save. It was in the last minute against St. Johnstone. We're 2-1 up.
Some memory, Johnny.
St. Johnstone nearly equalised. That cost us 2 points. If St. Johnstone equalised with that, but he made the save. 30 seconds later, we're 3-1 up. I can't remember exactly how it came about, but we
broke. So right, mate. Fuck. Good work, mate. Good work.
And it was James Forrest who scores the third goal. We were seconds from going 2 each, but now we go 3-1 up and the points are clinched. Who gets the plaudits for it? Forrest. Who actually made it? Joe Hart. It wasn't the greatest save in the world. It was no Gordon Banks against Pelly back in 1970. But he got there, he pushed the ball out. It might have even been him who got back up and threw the ball out into play. I can't remember. But I always remember that stuck in my head. I thought that could be a vital 3 points or 2 points he's just saved us there,
Irishman in Porto comes in, and thanks so much for jumping on the bus, Irishman in Porto. Good to have you on. Would it be better, someone like Forster? And I think it's important what you're saying here. Someone like Forster. I think there's definitely, in my opinion, a bias about this conversation that is based on who Fraser Forster is and what he's done and what he hasn't in a Celtic shirt, rather than it just being a goalkeeper. So I like the way Irishman in Porto said, someone like Forster, forget Forster for a minute, another. Would it be better to sign someone like another for maybe 2 years, of that profile, of that age, that is going to be, I think, guaranteed results? You know what you're going to get, right? Or would it be better to get something like Casteels, more of the unknown, but get the 4 or 5 years out of him? I think that's a fair question. I'll tell you why. Because I think when you get to the stage, you think you'll have players 4 or 5 years. If they're coming to Celtic and they still have 4 or 5 years left at the top, I think you could be into wishful thinking territory that they would spend all 4 or 5 at Celtic. I think if they've got that still left, they might end up a Celtic player for only 1. Look at Butland at Rangers. It signs a 4-year deal, but the story is that he wants out and Rangers want him out. They want to cash in after just 1 year, and there will be interested parties. It won't be £21 million, of course. But I wonder then, if we look at the Hart way, we go, he knows he's got no other option. Forster's not going to have crazy options to play again. Do you want to be remembered as a sub forever, or do you want one last go at being a hero, being a regular? I get the comparison. It sounds like I'm angling for Forster here. I'm not necessarily. I just think the balance to the debate is too many are going to base it on it being Fraser Forster, rather than looking at evidence-based and going, that would make sense if it wasn't him. Because he ticks every other box. He ticks other boxes. The problem is, he looks like he's dinged Celtic at the past. And I think that will sadly outweigh people who are trying to constructively think about it. Again, I think Brown Warrior comes in with fanciful thinking in this term, a bit like the 4 to 5 year scenario with a goalkeeper. You pay the money for Keller, and that sorts the goalkeeper situation out for 8 to 10 years. You don't sign players to Liverpool and keep them for 8 to 10 years. If we're good enough to be at Liverpool, the fact it costs 10 million, I think it'd be more than that. Then you bring him in, the likelihood is you sell one for a profit within 1 or 2.
Liverpool are looking for 20 million for him. I'd love him. I mean, I would take him in a heartbeat.
Would you keep him for 8 to 10 years? If no, it's unrealistic.
No, we wouldn't keep him for 8 to 10 years because he would have his 2 or 3 really amazing seasons and then move on. But Liverpool want 20 million for him, so there's no point in even talking about him. And in fact, with a new manager coming in, he might just fancy staying and saying, I just might have a chance here. So, yeah, like David Keller said, 25 million.
Okay, returning players. We'll do this one a wee bit less. That conversation probably went on longer than we planned.
Yeah.
French Eddie, told to look for a new club at the Celtic Player of the Year thing. 1 year left in his deal, so you get him for the knockdown price. Probably back to. I wonder if it would be the.
I want an ice cream.
You're right there, John. Yeah.
The wife needs some ice cubes for her wine, I suppose.
Oh, for my drink.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, you're quite right. You are quite right. Hello.
Hello.
There you go. If it's not David's dogs and cats, it's my wife. Eh?
No, that's all right, mate. That's all good. But when it comes to the Edouard one, I'm now going to flip it and say, based on what I've seen at Celtic, based on what I've seen at Crystal Palace, I just wonder what Edouard would bring to the table at Celtic. Whether he's really going to come here and be maximum up for it, whether we're going to get the best out of him back at Celtic, or whether pretty quickly, Johnny, Edouard would look around and go, I forgot why I left. I'm bored of all these grounds. Because he's still got, obviously, so many more years still left of his career. And maybe he would be angling for a move back. And maybe that disinterest, such as his language style on the park anyway, I think that can lead to someone looking like a lack of care. Is he a classy player? Yes, he's a classy player. Does he come back to Celtic and improve for his spell at Crystal Palace? I'm not so sure.
So are you asking me whether I think he should or whether I would take him back? Because I think
just take the debate any way you want, Johnny, any way you want.
I think I would take him back, even though I'm not a big fan of going back and taking players back. But that's usually because it's somebody who's made their name with us, left us at the age of 23, played somewhere else, Liverpool, Everton, wherever it happens to be, until they're about 33, 34, and then think, you know what, I think I'll go home for a couple of years and just that's the top of what I'm not a big fan of. But I would take Eddie back. A lot of people think, well, he didn't care, blah, blah, blah. He just had that attitude about him from day one. Even when he was on loan, he just had that so laid back.
It's a language style, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just how he is. I mean, I was working with a guy there last week who was so laid back he practically needed shoes on his shoulder blades. I just thought, John, I've never met anybody so laid back and nothing fazed him. He got excited about nothing. It didn't matter what he was doing, where you were going. He was just so languid. And I think that's Eddie's like that. And it gave the impression to a lot of us in that final COVID season that he chucked it. Still managed to finish top scorer or whatever, but because the rest of the thing went west, then we sort of Eddie chucked it along with a few others. It's got to be said. It was just one of those years where if it could go wrong, it went wrong. There's nothing you could do to get it back on an even keel. I would take him back. He's only 26, and if he came back and moved on in 3 years' time, but we won 3 more titles, would any of us really care? Would we be upset about it? I don't think we would.
Back to Stephen Kennedy, who's popped up a few times tonight, and cheers as always, Stephen, for watching the bus, jumping on the bus. We appreciate it, mate. I can see Matt O'Reilly going for a Scottish transfer record. I can see Matt O'Reilly leaving. You've not really had much of a chance to talk about this as of yet, Johnny. But in terms of Matt O'Reilly going, Celtic obviously hold the aces. The worst case scenario from probably Celtic's point of view, not necessarily my own, is that O'Reilly stays. I'm okay with that. But that'd be their worst case scenario, because that would mean bids have fallen below what I would guess will be their attempt to get a record fee, but not by the sort of gulf I think is potentially there to achieve when I look at other fees banded about and genuinely not just banded about, physically spent all across Europe now, which is from another stratosphere. I wonder, when Celtic have all the riches there, can they be bold enough to start talking real money? Can they be bold enough to say, look, we're in no position to sell, the guy is happy? I don't think Matt O'Reilly, believe it or not, see, unless it's a real like established club that is somewhere among the elite, such as a Liverpool, for example, I think he rocks the boat maybe a bit more than normal then. If it were a Brighton that's been linked, I think you've got far better chances of Matt O'Reilly going, fair enough, if they meet your asking price, I've signed the deal and I'm happy to stay. I think it was something like a Liverpool, it changes the narrative, and Celtic will be more open to negotiation on the fee. If it's an ideal world. In my mind personally, with the time that's left, I think you should be looking at 35 million upwards. That would be then about 28% more than what our record fee is at present. So I would take that as a sort of leap I expect when you start getting your shit together so soundly financially that you start going up by big jumps like that when you're selling key assets, not just selling for the same as you sold your last key asset. You start holding these clubs to ransom and fair fees that they spend in their mind. It's fair fees. Where are you at with Matt O'Reilly? Firstly, do you think he'll go? And if so, do you agree with Stephen it'll be a Scottish transfer record?
If he goes, it's definitely going to be a Scottish transfer record, and I think it'll be a Scottish transfer record by a long way.
So that's above the 25 million currently at.
Yeah, I think they'll. I said it last year when all the Jota thing came out, when I said at the time 50 million. Not because I thought Jota was worth 50 million, but it's just because I thought that's the marketplace that we are now in with football.
I remember that conversation.
For players that, particularly when it's a league that's, will just, throw money about like there's no tomorrow. Will he go? Now, I've been thinking about this one, and Matt O'Reilly, normally you would think to yourself, you would say, right, 23-year-old kid, he's been here, 2 years, 2.5 years now, whatever it is. We bought him for £1.5 million. We got offered 25 million, Celtic will snap their hands off. And in all honesty, Celtic probably would, the Celtic board would. Where it flips a little bit for me is we're talking about Matt O'Reilly, who has made decisions in the past which would have surprised a lot of people. He was offered a contract at Fulham.
Yeah, good point.
And he turned it down.
Game time, yeah.
Turned it down because he didn't see that contract being the benefit to his career. Now, I don't know whether the next bit's quite true that he was training in the park on his own and all the rest of it, and then got picked up by Milton Keynes. But regardless of that, he got picked up by Milton Keynes. He had the courage as a young kid at 19-year-old to say, that's not for me. Despite what he's probably getting told by agents in his ears and that, I think he's it's very flippant and patronising, I suppose, to say, well, he's a very intelligent young man, but I think he actually is, and he does. I think he's got his plan, and if his plan involves moving from Celtic this season, then he'll go. But if his plan doesn't involve moving at the minute for this season, then I don't think he will go, unless, like you said, it's a Real Madrid, which is not going to be. A Liverpool, there's a possibility, because they've had tabs on him when he was at Milton Keynes, and they'll have kept them tabs open.
Correct.
And they might just think, we had to pay 75 million quid for Virgil van Dijk because we would not take the jump when he was still at Celtic. We let him go to Southampton. We could have had him for 11 million quid 3 years ago, We had to wait. We waited, and now we've had to pay 75 million quid for him. They won't want to do the same with Matt O'Reilly. They've already been watching him. In fact, they're probably thinking, I'll tell you what, we could have had him for £1.5 million 3 years ago. Now we're going to have to give Celtic 25 million quid. If we let him go to Southampton or Brighton or wherever else, Crystal Palace, we're going to end up paying 70 or 80 million quid for him then. Let's get him in now. That might suit O'Reilly's plan. But if it doesn't suit O'Reilly's plan, I can see him staying another year. And it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not convinced he's going, but at the same time, it's a 50-50.
I think it's a 50-50. I'm glad you've said that, though, about his astuteness, because I think he does come over the level of intelligence about him. We talk about players getting the bug. I think he's got the Celtic bug as well. Mm-hmm. Is that enough, though, to dictate career options and big career decisions? No. I absolutely think if there's a better offer that is realistic for his career to carry on developing, but on a bigger stage, week in, week out, and that opportunity of realistic first-team football, then
he's young enough. He's young enough that this time next year is still plenty of time for him.
That's true as well. I don't think he'll be a boat rocker as such. My worry is Celtic blinking too quick. And that I think Jota found himself in Saudi because he's went, what? Like, I would guess at Celtic are, you're going there.
Yeah.
Saudis have agreed to deal with us. You're off.
You've just said it there. Celtic blinked as soon as it was, as soon as the Saudi club flashed their neck, Celtic blinked, and that was it. Like, we'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I feel with O'Reilly is he's not going to want to make that same mistake in the career wilderness a year later and missing out on the memories that could be made at Celtic, like as Jota has. And I was very fond of Jota. I just thought he was, I think you've got to look at how Jota conducted himself at Celtic and go, is he a rat that's just, it was all bullshit at the time? Or is he someone that's been told or asked with only one option as an answer what to do? Would you like to speak to Saudi, Jota, as you're getting pushed to the door, and your suitcase is packed for you? That's how it feels.
Sign it, yeah.
That's how it feels looking at that. He was in a long-term deal as well. Celtic need to start standing up for, firstly, themselves and trying to dictate fees that are realistic in a more positive manner. They also need to look at players and start treating them as one of their own, the way that they kid on that they do in public. And that would mean always saying to Matt O'Reilly, we'll keep you in the loop. We're going to keep you in dialogue. This is what we've asked for, by the way. And then it's up to you if you want to speak to them. Show them that respect. Show them that respect. Don't make decisions for them and go, Matt, we couldn't say no to the offer, by the way. And to be honest, that's pretty much happening now. Imagine him down.
Liam right there where he says, but also he doesn't have to just look at Jota. He just has to look at a man we've just talked about.
Hudson Edward. Yeah.
Yeah. He went down to Tottenham, got off the flyer, scored within minutes of coming on in his debut. I think he even scored twice, actually, against Spurs. Turned the game round. Crystal Palace won 3-1 or something, I think, in the first day of the season that he was there. And it's never happened for Edouard Witt because he's been played in the wrong position, the wrong team. He just, I'm fed up of watching talented Celtic players go to mid-table to bottom Premiership teams and expect to become the superstars there when these guys are having a completely different ball game, playing for survival and not playing the free-flowing attacking football that they've become used to playing for Celtic, because that's how we played, because that's the level of opposition we're up against. Now all of a sudden they're spending their time playing for a team who spends 90% of the time defending, trying to not lose goals, trying to survive. And I don't think Matt O'Reilly will make that mistake. I don't think he'll jump to a Crystal Palace. It's like you've said, that it's gonna the worry is gonna be top clubs coming in for him, that even a diehard Celtic fan would say, I can't turn that down.
Exactly, mate. And I think that's totally balanced, Johnny. We will wrap up the show. Patrick McLaughlin, our very own in the live chat, has came in with, he's had a wee bit of Shane McGowan songwriting lessons, I think. A wee bit of alcohol involved, a wee bit of David Bowie songwriting lifting. And he's decided to go, there's a starman running down the right. His name is Jamesy Forrest and the title's out of sight. Oh, there's a starman wearing green and white. His name is Jamesy Forrest and he's fucking dynamite. Well done, Patrick, mate. I hope that took you as less time that it took me to read that out. I'm only kidding, mate. Didn't give up the day job, though. It's okay. It's okay. Will I be signing at Hampden at the weekend? Fuck off, mate. Absolutely not. But Patrick, I love the enthusiasm, mate. Bit of imagination, a bit of creativity. We are all for it, mate. Anyway, that wraps up, Johnny. It's been brilliant having you on the 100th episode of the T.N.F tonight. I can't thank you enough.
I've enjoyed it.
Enjoy the weekend. Let us know what top you decided to wear. And to everyone in the live chat, thanks so much. It's been busy. It's been fun. There's been loads of great points made. And we will be back with that Friday feeling tomorrow night with Phil and the rest of the gang. Keep your eyes on the Scottish Cup. Is it going to come?
Enjoy the game.
Cheers, Johnny.
Cheers.